Now, this bill does give the authority of the state, or I guess this board under the state, to is it 3 years down the road? It gives the authority to this board and the state, if there is excess revenue, that they can take that excess revenue from the hospital.
They could, sir. That's one of the options. But again, what that's used for, Representative, is you need, again, I guess I'm really not explaining this very well, because without that provision, without some sort of clawback, without some sort of mechanism to, have some sort of a financial penalty, which quite frankly, my friend at the Healthcare Association mentioned as an option for this to enforce this bill, you would have a situation where they could continue to ignore year over year the budgets that are agreed upon with no repercussions to them.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. I guess I'm not making myself clear, or to other people in this chamber, is we're giving the state authority to take money from a private business when they make excess revenue. So we're giving the state authority through this bill to take money from a business when they're doing well. That's exactly what we're signing off on here.
No.
I understand that you're saying it may not have teeth if we don't put in here, but that's what we're doing by saying yes to this bill, is giving authority to the state to take money from a nonprofit when they do well. That's exactly what's happening here.
Representative, could I?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think you're getting at kind of the point of why we're here, which is what's been years and years of sort of unchecked doing very well, making more revenue year over year, making revenue that outpaces inflation every year, and the strain that that's having on the rest of the economy at large. Yes, these institutions are doing very well. They're making a lot of money, and that's great. And I think it's led to some amount of, good investment in their own facilities. But the question is, how much of our economy can we allow this industry to take on and become a larger percentage of until we start recognizing that their continued growth and continued success, as you're putting it, is having a negative impact on state budgets. It's having a negative impact on small business budgets. It's having a negative impact on the budgets of Delawareans who are paying more and more for their health care.
I don't agree with that, but
it's in the data.
My follow-up question is, once this money, if we're giving authority to take this money when it's excess revenue, where does this revenue then go? Where does the state put this revenue?
So right now it's established to go to a fund to help invest in health activities. And I think the speaker could answer a little bit more about that provision of the bill.
That's my question. Where does this, if this board takes this revenue, where will this money go?
So as the bill stipulates, I think it would stay in the Treasury Department. We had some conversations about that. But it would go to a fund to invest in community health projects.
And what is the definition of what a community health project looks like that it can be spent on?
I don't believe the bill gets to that level of detail, sir.
Okay. So what we're saying here is, if this money is, but we're giving authority for the state to take this excess revenue, that the state knows how to better spend this excess revenue in our communities than the hospitals that actually employ hundreds of people and serve thousands of people in our community.
There's an assumption that excess revenue is being used to do the point that you're making by the hospitals.
It definitely is. I can tell you in Bay Health in Milford, it's spent very well in our community. And now we're saying that the state knows how to better spend that excess revenue than our own nonprofits do in our community. That's what this bill is saying right here. I'd like to move on to the benchmarks.
Sure.
Are you done with the witness?
He may be able to answer the benchmarks. I'm not sure. So, under this bill, first of all, can you answer? And please, if this isn't for you, we can let him go. But where are the benchmarks coming from?
Sure.
That are established by this board.
Right. So right now, the benchmark program was established in 2018 under an executive order. It was then put into statute by the General Assembly in 2022, I think. That is determined by a subcommittee of DFAC, the Healthcare Benchmark Subcommittee of DFAC, and they have a methodology that they've determined on their own. That part's not in statute that they use to set the benchmark.
Okay. And who's regulating these benchmarks?
So they set the benchmark, DFAC does, and then the department has, there's a benchmark. The benchmark is housed in the Healthcare Commission, and every year they measure the total healthcare spend in the state to compare it to the benchmark.
Okay. So under the, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but how I understand the bill is if the hospital does not meet the government benchmarks, the government can take over the financial management of that hospital.
They have, so you're kind of skipping to the very end in a process that assumes there's absolutely no progress and positive, I guess, movement that the board would deem it necessary to start marking up a budget. But yes, sir.
I understand that, but again, we're giving the authority to the state government to say, if you don't meet our benchmarks, then we have the authority to take over the financial management of your business.
Hey, can I just, I mean,
Yes,
this may
go
be a
ahead.
distinction that is not received very well by you, but these would not be state government employees, these would be board members. So these wouldn't be like full state government employees. It's not like, you know, somebody sitting at the Department of Health and Social Services is making that decision. But your point is received.
They're appointed by the governor and they're paid for by the state of Delaware.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My question with that is, I don't know, who would be running the financial management at this time? Who would take over that financial management?
So the board would be the entity that makes the final decisions on that sort of thing, whether to enter into that, what to do with it, and that sort of thing. The fiscal note of the bill assumes some analysts that would exist at the Healthcare Commission who are state employees, and some contractual services to help, you know, with the work of, you know, going through the documents and informing the board members about the current situation and what the financials say, so that to help them make a decision.
So would the board, along with its analysts, be taking over the financial management of the hospital if this was?
They would not be taking it over in the sense that they wouldn't be, you know, they wouldn't be originating a document. And I wonder if they wouldn't be the ones, say, sitting down and saying, we are now going to write a budget for this particular healthcare entity. They'd be receiving the budget and they would have the opportunity to go through it and obviously revise the budget as it's stated here. In the event that we get to that end point, and again, I think this is a hypothetical that again you're latching on to sort of what is kind of needed for any real accountability to be maintained in this entire process, is at some point there needs to be some ability for an enforcement piece in all this.
Well, I have to disagree. It's not a hypothetical. We're giving authority to our government and to this board to determine what the excess revenues are, to take away excess revenues, to put it into a fund to be used for community and say that they're going to spend it better than our hospitals are. And we're allowing them, giving them the authority under this bill to create the benchmarks and take over the financial management. So yes, it may be, you know, a third step, and it may be that you don't want to use it, and it may be that you have to put this in there in order to have some teeth in the bill. But by saying yes to this bill, we're giving authority to the state government to do all these things.
But I guess here's one response I would have to that, Representative, and I do appreciate where you're going in this. And I think part of the other challenge that we're having here, and why we find ourselves talking about healthcare so much, particularly healthcare finance, it spills over into everything, sir. This isn't a situation where the decisions made by the hospital and decisions made by the organizations that pay them a certain price for their services are limited to just impacting the financials of those two particular parties of the contract. This is much larger than this, right? The decisions made by a hospital and an insurer have an impact on individuals, have an impact on small business, have an impact on the state government. So the idea that this just continues and that the state has no sort of, rationale for being involved in such a process that affects all of our taxpayers, all of our citizens, all of your constituents in this room, all the businesses that operate in our state, I think that that's what this is about. It's about a seat at the table for individuals whose priority is the taxpayers, priority is the residents of the state, and not necessarily their own bottom lines.
I would argue that this isn't a seat at the table. This is definite government overreach by putting authority into this bill of taking over the hospitals if they deem necessary. The government overreach in the healthcare industry in Delaware has actually increased the cost of our healthcare industry here. The state of Delaware has put into practices here that have diminished competition here in Delaware. And the competition is what is going to drive down costs and bring up the quality of care. And we've done things, this chamber has done things to diminish that competition and allow for not only certain...
Point of order, is there a question here?
Yes.
Mr. Acting Speaker?
Representative Bomback.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a question for the witness.
Sir, do you have a question for the witness? If not, we will move on.
I thought this was a good exchange, Representative.
Let me see. I'll save my comments for later. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Smith.